or a couple more moments, and then we'll get started for the pledge of allegiance. All right. If you please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think it is also worth noting that today is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day. So I hope that you take a moment to reflect upon the significance of that. One of the things that the town is very proud of is all of our men and women that have served and veterans. So if there's any veterans in the room tonight, extend special thanks and appreciation. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and can I get a roll call, please?
Michael Cashman.
Present.
Thomas Wood.
Present.
Barbara Hebert.
Here.
Charles Costick.
Here.
Dana Isabella.
Here.
James Coffey is absent, and I am Julie present.
All right. Resolution 133, approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Resolved that the minutes of April 18th of 2024 and April 25th of 2024 be approved, and the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Wood, Hebert. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution does carry. This is where the instruction comes in for the public comment. So bear with me for just a moment. The town of Plattsburgh Town Board has a long-standing tradition which encourages citizens to contact its elected supervisor and council members to address issues that involve the town. When members of the public desire to address the entire board, the town of Plattsburgh hereby establishes a public comment policy to allow those members of the public an additional opportunity to address the board. In addition to public hearings, a special time is hereby set for the purpose of receiving comments and suggestions from citizens. All comments made during the public comment period shall be made subject to the following procedures. Public comment period should not exceed 30 minutes and will be held at the beginning of a regularly scheduled work session as well as board meeting. Speakers may, but are not required to give their name and address. Speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer. Each person coming forward to speak will have up to 5 minutes to make his or her statement and may not yield any remaining time to another speaker. Speakers shall address board members from the podium and not approach the board or any other town employees. Council members, with the permission of the presiding officer, may ask a speaker during their remarks only for clarification of information. When a meeting is attended by a group of people who share the same or opposing views on public comment topic, the presiding officer may require the group's designee to limit to 2 spokespersons. We are not following that procedure tonight. There's too much diversity in opinions. So I just want to let you know that we are waiving that, and we often do that. Statements are to be directed to the town board as a whole and not to individuals. Public comment is not intended to require the town board to provide any answers to the speaker. Speakers shall observe the commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste, and we would also ask the same of our council members and me. The town board may by majority voice vote grant more time on the topic. So we will be fairly fluid this evening. You know, we're not going to just shut the aperture and shut people down. That's never been our process. But I will call for, are there any other comments? Are there any other comments? Are there any other comments? By that point, if no one has risen, we will proceed on to the rest of the meeting. Agreed? Perfect. And with that, the casualty of this begins. The last thing, again, we would just remind people is please come up to the podium. If you have some mobility issues, we certainly have, we'll give you the time to get there, so take your time, don't rush. So.
Good evening.
I can't hear.
Is it not on?
So there it is on.
Yeah, it's really more for the forward facing than it is in the,
So it just
yeah.
goes down like that.
Yeah.
And if you move it a little closer. Okay.
first of all, I want to thank all of you for your service to our community. And we are, my husband Neil Hannon and I are relatively new to the community, but we're proud to be part of the Plattsburgh community. My name is Sarah Goodwin. We own a home on Cumberland Head Road, 589 Cumberland Head Road. And I want to make clear that I'm speaking here only for my husband and me in regard to our home on Cumberland Head, but we're also aware, as are you, I think, that many of our neighbors have also been disturbed by what we perceive as inequities and inconsistencies in this year's assessment process. And but I speak for myself, but we've also been in loose contact with each other. We are not asking the town board to make changes in anyone's individual assessments. We realize legally you can't do that. And as we understand it, there is a state law, I think it's 512, that prohibits the town board from intervening in any way with the assessment process. So our goal is to make sure that you are informed, and also to find out if you know of any recourse we might have. We would like to see this year's assessment process halted for an inquiry into the questions that we and others are raising. But we gather that you don't have the power to make that happen. We understand, speaking now for my husband and me, that it makes sense to update assessments regularly and to aim for full market value. It's not a fun process, but it does have to happen for reasons of fairness and equity. Increases in assessments for reasons of equity are not related to the town's budget and tax rates, which are not set by the assessor's office. So, in other words, increases in assessments do not necessarily bring increases in taxes, and we understand that. However, differences in assessments do result in differences in taxes. So if one house's assessment is not raised at the same rate as another house's assessment, then there will be differences in taxes. And that's why it's so important that the assessment process be fair, equitable, and based on transparent criteria and data. Our primary concerns about the assessment process are that it lacks equity, it lacks transparency, and it lacks communication. The assessments of which we are aware have been extremely uneven, which means they are inequitable. Equity is a primary concern. Just for example, I'll just throw a few out, I'm sure you'll do others, but our own house, our own property, the assessment went up 65% over 2 years ago when it was assessed at full market value. That doesn't actually bear any relation to increases in property values in our location. We understand that Cumberland had values have gone up more quickly than some places in Plattsburgh, but that doesn't bear any relation to any data we've been able to find. Another example would be that one property we found sold in September, last September 23, for $660,000, but its current assessment is $473,000. That's just, it doesn't make sense. And then we also looked at a number of assessments that we could identify the houses online. And the ranges per square foot go anywhere from $149 a square foot to, I'll just read them off, 173, 209, 245, 315, and 370 a square foot. Now, the price per square foot, the value per square foot, leaves out all sorts of variables, but in those properties, the differences also did not make a whole lot of sense when we looked at what those properties were, and of course we're looking for comparables. My point is that there are lots of data points, and I'm sure others will bring them, where the assessments are not really making sense. The process is not transparent. We don't know the criteria or the data sources so that we can try to figure out why these numbers seem so wacky. And communication, which is essential, has been lacking. We know from some neighbors that it's difficult to get responses from the assessor's office. You know, there are phone numbers you can call, but you don't get the call back. We know it's hard to find information online. Although property values increase, many people's income does not. People need more information about the bases for their assessments and more concrete assurances that the new appraisals will not dramatically affect their ability to live in their homes. So again, what we hope for from you, we know that you cannot legally interfere with the assessment process, but can you help us find out what recourses we may have for a process that is not just not working for individuals, but also apparently for the community as a whole? Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that I'm looking at a stopwatch to be, fair and consistent. I'm listening. So thank you very much. Is there someone else that would like to come forward? Come on down.
I also want to thank you for all you do. And I definitely want to thank you for proceeding. So I also want to say that the concern, my name is Mary Teresa Pearl. Grown up in the community, family is coming back, we had served in the military, all of us, and wanted to start business to get back into the Plattsburgh area. And I went through and also had the same concern, trying to call, get meetings, email, no response. Went on to the website to download and it was not available. Had to go to the Essex County to get the available forms. But I was too late, so I'm sorry. I also am looking at the real estimates that are done throughout most assessment throughout the US. Not only did mine not go for the lowest, the middle, or the high valuation, it was well above the high valuation, and I don't understand why. I also pulled up properties in Cliff Haven that people on the board, the assessment board, their valuation went down. They only went up this percent, and people right across the street went up more than, well, one went up 16,000 from a lower assessed value with twice the property size and square footage, and another property across the street went up 70,000 and smaller property, smaller house. I don't understand that, and I'm hoping it's not friends and family. My other issue is that when these are done, just as you had said, why can't we get the information on how it's being done? I understand we need to have more taxes, but I want to know what is being done with those taxes. If you're assessing individuals, I just want to know what is that additional tax going towards. Stripped off the paper that was and like I said, I do appreciate all the work you do. You don't have the most loving jobs. People are always coming at you, but at the same time, we just want to understand what is happening and where's our money going. Thank you.
I'm going to comment on that, but I will tell you something. As my wife reminds me, we went begging for these jobs and knocked on doors. So you don't have to thank us. Seriously, I want that relatable thing of, we understand and we appreciate the kindness, but we want to be here to listen to more of your comments. So with that, next person, there's no particular running list. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone else willing?
Yeah.
My name's Kathleen Barrett. I grew up about 5 miles from here and love it here. And many of us grew up here and we moved away went out and did our college and families, and where did we wanna come? We wanted to come back here. But I'm afraid we're getting taxed out. And my question for you all is, what are you doing to help us? So I have dear friends that live down in the city, and I know it's hearsay, but Hochul was heard to say that we are paying not enough taxes up here in the North Country, and she was gonna do something about it. And I think with COVID, it brought a lot of awareness to how wonderful it is around here, and people wanna come here. Unfortunately, those of us who grew up here and are trying to stay here, who contributed a lot to the community and still do, we don't wanna leave, but it's getting harder and harder. Our home was increased over a 3-year period, 70%. 2-bedroom house, how can that be? Just how can that be? And I think, our person who does our assessments could use a little help with communication and a little help with kindness. There's a way when we're doing this job to do the job and do a good job at it, but also communicate in a way that's kind. So, just looking for some help and, wondering,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, if you want clarification.
Where are you located?
in Cliff Haven.
Oh, Kathleen, mine went up 147% in 1 year.
Yeah, it just.
71% in 1 year.
The one thing that I, just to be able to keep it as clean and conversation, if you wanna speak, you certainly will be provided an opportunity, but the back and forth will detract.
Okay.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else looking to speak?
Hi, I'm Gene Casone, I live out in Cumberland Head, Illinois. Very high assessment, which would be expected. And what I mentioned, because I was discussing with some of the other people in this room, I said, you know, we're looking at assessments, and yes, percentages that are going up, but quite substantially. But I said, it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna be paying more in taxes. You know, it depends on the levy, it depends on a lot of different things. Although it gives you more room to raise it in the future. And so, when I looked at my town taxes, there's a lot on there. You know, there's the county, there are the roads, there are the fire district, water, sewer. And maybe you can help explain to me how this works. I mean, do all these departments, do they present a budget? And then with that budget, you look at all the assessed values and you do all the math and calculate it out and blah, 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 and you come up with a levy to pay for that budget? Is that how it works? Is somebody overlooking bills? Because if I look at the breakup, I mean, I'm, you know, between water, sewer, county roads, amazingly, I'm paying a huge, on my fire district. And, you know, I don't know, is anybody reviewing these budgets? You know, are they just out there, they come to you and they say, this is our budget, this is what we need, and divide it up? Is anybody reviewing that? You know, is there some type of feedback on these numbers, and how do they come up? I mean, the other issue, you know, my school taxes are way above my town taxes, okay? And, you know, and you wanna talk about, comparison, I mean, I'm from Westchester County, okay? You can imagine what, you know, house values are down there. And, you know, I have friends whose value is as much as mine, if not more, and they pay 1/3 of taxes we do. So I don't know what Hochul's coming out saying that we don't pay enough taxes, you know, because if you look at the percentages, it's out of hand. So, I don't know if we can understand how that is calculated, and if there is some oversight of all these different departments and how it's broken up, because that I don't understand how that works.
Any other comments? All right. Appreciate it. At the end, I am gonna make some comments that I hope will provide some clarity, but we want it thematically, right? We wanna hear what the concerns are, so that we can hear from you first before and it's no prepared statement either. That's why I'm trying to glean off some stuff and direct you to some resources, okay? So it may capture some of the questions that you have and some of the previous speakers, okay? Anyone else seeking to speak? Come on down.
I'm David Kaka, CACKA. I live at 437 Cumberland Head Road, and I'm a numbers guy, so I like
Put your mic up a little.
I like to look at numbers and understand what's happening within numbers. And so all the information that I have comes from the Clinton County Real Property website, 2023 full market value versus 2024 full market value. And the properties are broken into a piece that's the value of the land, and then the value of the structure, which isn't stated, but subtracting from the total value of the property, so you can understand what the structures are. And looking at waterfront properties, the property increases, land value seems to be kind of a straight 18% across the board, no matter where you are. The value of the structures way up, down, which doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. I looked at different areas. I looked at every waterfront property along the west shore of Cumberland Head, and saw that the market value increase is almost 29%. A lot of variation from property to property. And I pulled a selection of waterfront properties over on the east side of the head to see if they were doing the same things as the west side of the head. And their land increase is right around that 18%, but the total increase is only around 18%. It's a third less than the west side of the head, which doesn't seem to make sense. No way to understand what's happening. And then just for some curiosity and insight, I took a look at a development in the interior of Cumberland Head to see what was happening. And the land values increased 63%. The value of the structures decreased by 6.2%. And the total increase in the market value is 0.35%. I truly expect it to be higher in the waterfront areas than in the interior, but not like this. It makes no sense. And what happened with the land values versus the structure values, it just makes no sense. You would expect them all to be appreciated and not so much something. So that's some of the discrepancies we see as a group, and really have no way to understand why or how this has all come about. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Very useful.
Is there anyone else seeking to speak?
I'm John Griffin, I live on Cumberland Head. People who are numbers people told you a lot about that, and I'm not going to talk about that, although I have an issue with that. My concern is that in trying to interact with the people who were involved with this process, they were absolutely obnoxious. In fact, one person told me that you really shouldn't be calling about this. And that I think you're people who are responsible for the employees, and you may not have some other responsibilities, but you can't have employees like, if I call up and just simply say, how do I get this? And they say, no, I really can't help you, and, I don't think you're gonna get a call back, and I don't think that, stuff like that is happening. And I think running a business like that is not a very good thing. And I hope it doesn't reflect on the rest of the business, but certainly in that department, that's clearly what's going on. Maybe they're overwhelmed, and you need to fix that too, but it's clearly at this point totally unsatisfactory. You can't get any information. And they say, don't even bother to call back, because we're not gonna give you any.
Are there any other speakers? Okay.
Whoops.
I'm Nancy Olson. I've lived on Cumberland Head for 41 years. And my feeling with this new assessment that has been leading to or derived from downstate interest in real estate up here. And I think the assessments kind of show that, what an ideal location we have. And one example, and you might cut me off, is Tom Galasino, and he has property on Canandaigua Lake. I'm not sure if he's still there. And he had geese in his front yard. And he refused to pay his town taxes because of the geese. We don't have geese in our yard. They're in the cornfield. Thank you.
Is there any other speakers? Are there any other speakers? One per go, please.
Go ahead.
Are there any other speakers? Go ahead.
Mine was 153. I just did them.
Hi. My name is
Yeah.
Kathleen Magali. I live in Clifhaven. I called you, Mike, we had a conversation on the phone, and I expressed my concern about the assessments. I bet your ear a little bit. The assessment was very upsetting, and I'm just speaking for myself, but I also speak to, it feels like we're being taxed out with money coming from areas that are not local. Median income around here is like 77,000, I think at the high end. Where are we supposed to go? My assessment went up 71% in 1 year. That feels excessive. My land alone is $305,000. Last year, the entire assessment was $340,000. How is that possible? The comps that were used were not comparable. All you have to do is drive by and you'd see that they are not comparable. The houses are not the same. I have a modest ranch house. The houses that my house was compared to were not modest ranches by any stretch of the imagination. So, using bad comps to justify 71% increases it feels like an injustice to the people who live here and would like to stay in this community, who love it so much. I moved back here from the Albany area because I love this community so much. I always have. And I would like to stay here, so I'm kind of begging you to help us in this process, figure out how do we not get taxed out? We want to stay, but it might be an impossibility for us to stay retired, fixed income. I'm not the only one. So, please help us.
I saw something get up, so wasn't gonna ask.
Huh?
I said I saw you coming up, so I wasn't gonna ask if there was a next meeting.
I'm loud enough, so I think everybody can hear. Well, it's a question, so later on, but my thought is, one, did the board tell the assessor that he had to raise the property values? Two, where did he come from? Did he do this all on his own? What are his qualifications to be doing what he's doing? And then three, did the board see all of the stuff he did and say, okay, fine? Or did he just put all those assessments out without anybody looking at it and agreeing or disagreeing with what he did? Again.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else looking to speak?
I,
Come on down.
I'm sorry, excuse me, yes.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Mary Ann. For the tax record, I am Green, but my name is Mary Ann Kirby. But on the tax bill, I'm Mary Ann Green. I would just like to, I would also encourage more transparency in the process. I'd like to understand, I think a lot of us would like to understand how we get to where we've gotten right now. I appreciate the community. I know that it's a wonderful place to live. We have so much potential. We want to keep the taxes and everything in line, the assessments in line with the taxes. We want more people to come to our area. We want more businesses. We have great schools. We have a great quality of life here. I just would like personally to know how we got, how this system works. And I'm not sure that I understand it. I tried to have a conversation, and unfortunately I was stopped by the police, so I had to pull over because I was talking to the assessor, and I pulled over so I could, continue my conversation. I wasn't in any trouble or anything, but had to quit the conversation to explain to the officer why I pulled over. So it's just, I think I would just be more comfortable if I could understand how we got here. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else seeking to speak? Is there anyone seeking to speak? Come on down.
Hello, Bill Plimpton. I live on Cumberland Head and out on the head for, in my house at 30, close to that area. Just some of the questions that come to mind, and you can feel the room. There was a very big issue with the assessor's office this year. Very unapproachable. Don't need to keep repeating. But one thing that I haven't heard that was said tonight is you can always sell. That's not an answer.
Yes.
That's not an answer. That's not something that a concerned resident wants to hear. So maybe you'll answer some of this later. What is the tax rate this year? Has it changed? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? I understand that there's different factors. I understand that the school's involved. How about mandates? What mandates has New York State put on you? And are they funded or unfunded? Where is all this increase in revenue that the assessments are going to generate? Where is that going? It's very distressing. We talk about affordable housing. There's a lot of people in this area that are now considering the if they can stay in their homes or not. This is unsustainable. Where is the business? I understand all the buses going out. Where is the business to draw it? I don't know, again, those are my questions. Actually, the Band-Aids and maybe a little housekeeping is in order. Thank you.
My name's Elizabeth Pearl. I too live in Brookhaven on a lake. I didn't come to the grievance day this year because 2 years ago I went down that road. I took time away from my family and my business. I called the assessor's office to get comparables. I did due diligence to what my property was and what the comps were. I sat in a hot, stuffy room in front of a panel that was probably frustrated with all the people that were grieving. And I didn't get very far. And I got really frustrated and disappointed with the lack of respect from the assessor's office. I moved back to Plattsburgh 19 years ago with my young children to care for some family members. I moved into the house that my grandmother lived in for 98 years, and I opened a healthcare business. I volunteer in our community, and I serve people. Not a public servant, but one in healthcare. I don't have any fancy retirement. There's no government supporting me. I work in healthcare, so I can't charge more for my service. My house assessment 2 years ago went up over $200,000. And this year we went up about over 150. Actually, in the last 4 years, I think our assessment went up almost over double. I have a modest, single-family home on the lake. Just like Bill said, I'm not looking to leave my home or my community. And as long as I continue to serve in healthcare, I can't charge more money for what I do. So if I did go out of healthcare and just make people pay for my service, because my bills and expenses are getting higher, I don't serve as many people. So I'll ask the board to help us find better clarity and equity in all of this, because it isn't sustainable. Thank you so much.
Anyone else seeking to speak? Is there anyone else seeking to speak?
My name is Neil Hannon. I'm at 589 Cumberland Head Road with my wife Sarah. And I'd like to thank all of my neighbors for coming out tonight. Really, thank you. And I'd like to thank the board for their service. I know you seek this out, but still it's a burden. And I serve myself a bit. The main issues that I think we're facing, my wife already outlined, and I'll be very careful not to contradict her, are equity, transparency, and accountability. And I think also just, decency. We heard stories here where people were treated badly, and, that's not fair. That's not what government is about. That's not the vibe I've gotten from anybody on this board. So I understand that there's a firewall between you and the assessment board. It's a legal firewall there for a purpose, so that you can't influence the assessment process directly, and that's as it should be. But there is control over the appointment of the board, and there is control over the appointment of the assessor. And I think that when those appointments come up, then we'll count on you to do the job that we want you to do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else seeking to speak? Is there anyone else seeking to speak? Is there anyone else seeking to speak? Seeing that no one else is seeking to speak, I will begin where the conversation should start, and that is thank you. I mean that very, very sincerely. I know that you did not have an experience where you felt that you wanted to go to the grievance board again, but you came here tonight, so I thank you for leaning in once again, okay? No prepared remarks, it's gonna be a little buckshot here, so stick with me. I wanna start in a completely different direction than maybe what you would expect me to start with. Local government is the closest to the people, right? You're gonna see me in Hannaford's. I love it. My wife doesn't always like it when we're holding pints of ice cream that's melting in hands. I say that with, you know, a little bit of joke because we're neighbors. We're also taxpayers. We have a mutual interest in making sure that we're rowing in the same boat together, okay? Some of the things that are occurring happens at the local level, and a lot of it has systems in place that come down through various other locations, right? They collide, and it becomes very confusing, and it becomes very trying. So where I wanna pivot for just a moment is, we need our community to be part of our community. The Board of Assessment, okay, that does grievance, are taxpayers. They're volunteers. Our planning board, our zoning board, our finance board, our recreation committee, we need community members to participate in our local government. And we have a volunteer form, and I will tell you that, because I want people to think, you know, I don't want people to think, oh, well, I never get appointed. We've appointed Democrats and working families and independents and, you know, youth and senior, like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for citizens that have an interest in getting involved. And you will note that we have put out a casting call multiple times over the years, and we will continue to do that. So if you have an interest in getting involved, we would love to have you fill out an interest form for consideration. So I want to start there. That's one way we begin to recalibrate.
Michael,
yeah.
we've appointed Republicans too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, the buckshot. To answer only fragments of your questions, because we simply can't get to it all, but I hope to shed some light. If you have not been, some of you have, some of you have not, but go to the town's website. We have kept 2 videos up there that are not sourced that we created, okay? Because we wanted kind of that independent perspective to let people kind of understand some of that process and what some of that impact can be. There's also a PDF form on there. It is true that assessments can go up and your taxes not go up, or nominally, truly nominally. So one of the questions was kind of like, who's watching the store, right? I look at my tax bill, and I worked in higher education for 11 years before I got into local government. I want this to be really clear. I'm not picking on education, folks, but just holding a mirror to the community from what we hear. A lot of people get very concerned about school districts. It really is one of the larger ones that we hear often. We do not control the school district's budget. We have nothing to do with it from that perspective of, and it's a public referendum vote, okay? On average, and don't hold me to the exact number, but I think Saranac School District just held their vote, and I think it was like 500 or 600 people voted. That's it. Okay? Your volunteer fire departments, that has a budgetary process. And there's commissioners as well. There's a governance structure where people can volunteer and help participate in this. I will say this though. We have 5 volunteer fire departments, and we are truly blessed that we have volunteer fire. Because these men and women put gas into their personal cars to go to the station, to go do the work voluntarily. So if you look at that, and I'm speaking for myself here. I mean, I'm just being raw and real with you all because you were raw and real with us, okay? That, as much as holding the line and being good stewards of citizens' money as anything else. Now, the town of Plattsburgh, you may, well, how does the town of Plattsburgh do their stuff? We do not have a traditional property tax. We base ours on sales tax. There are special districts and areas, I would dare say, and we're not perfect because, you know, the rate isn't New York City rate or Long Island rate and so on and so forth, okay? Our roads are better than others, but we don't have a property tax, and we also do a modified zero-based budget every year, okay? I can tell you there's a lot of governments out there that they come in and they just put 10% on top of the budget from the year before, looking at inflation, looking at various things. So what does a modified zero-based budget look like at the town of Plattsburgh? We do all the work that we do on behalf of our community with approximately 70 people, okay? And we basically build the budget based on what our contractual services are. You know, what our agreement with the Teamsters are, what our agreement with our staff members are. But then we create new priority pipelines each year, and that's where we put money into various slots. We have consistently been under the New York State tax cap. A number of years ago, Governor Cuomo, you can all opine on whether you were fans or not fans, but I'm just speaking fact, he implemented a tax cap, approximately 2%, okay? The town of Plattsburgh has consistently been under the New York State tax cap because we use our modified zero-based budget, but we continue to get new plows out on the road so that we can plow roads. We can continue to focus on our water infrastructure. We can continue to provide recreation from youth to seniors. So I share that with you because as leaders in the town, we're also taxpayers because we're also looking at both sides of the ledger as well, okay? There is no doubt in my mind that things need to change within New York State. There's no doubt. New York City has certain cap structures that the rest of the state doesn't have. We need some of those tools, right? So we need to continue to work with our legislative members in the state. Senator Jones, Senator Dan Steck. I happen to serve on the executive committee of the Association of Towns, which is a bipartisan group that hears this stuff, you know, often. Because while we're here tonight having this conversation, I am confident that around the water cooler, you can talk to town residents of Peru, Beekman, Champlain, you know, other areas within our own county that are seeing some of these swings and shifts and pressure points. So there's a lot going on there. I will say, and I want to talk directly to the tone, temperature, and professionalism. I hope you will respect this. It's not a deflection. Okay, it's not a deflection. When there are issues with personnel, there are certain items that you just do not discuss in public domain, right? Certain employees and stuff. I will fully recognize, I will fully acknowledge that there is a need for a recalibration, and that is going to occur. Okay?
Thank you.
You can mark my words that a recalibration is occurring, okay? I will also say though, okay, that an assessor has an appointment period, and there are other mechanisms within the structure of government that makes this, you know, a good friend of mine once taught me the phrase, paperwork is the embalming fluid of bureaucracy. Okay? And a lot of that though doesn't always happen at the level that you're working with, right? You know, STAR, for example, you know, you interface with us, but it's a state, you know, so that's why I just say that I tell you here directly to your faces that we will continue to do whatever we can within the tools and structure that the town board has to be morally and ethically sound, okay? Because that firewall, that firewall of sense is really critical. I do not think you want me putting the thumb on the scale, right? I don't think you want any of my colleagues to put the thumb on the scale. And equally, I hear some of the concern of what you're saying about, oh, well, it seems like, you know, grievance boards members may have, not had that level of impact. If you're ever interested, there's a training manual and reference materials. This last one was published, this last one I could find was 2019 under Colma, but the program really hasn't changed. They have to go through training before they sit on that board, okay? From a volunteer standpoint, and that doesn't mean that everybody gets things perfect all the time. But there are other processes and procedures if you're not pleased with some of your structure. The last little tidbit that I want to touch on, and I hope that I captured most of it. If not, please feel free to call me. I know some of you have engaged with me already. I will return the phone call. Happy to sit down and have a longer conversation. How are tax rates kind of determined? Because of the different taxing jurisdictions, there are different periods of time that they come out, right? So there's a level of anxiety, like what's my final tax bill gonna be? Like what's the county rate gonna be? What's the school rate gonna be? What's the fire department's rate gonna be? What's the town's gonna be? Okay, some of those things don't all coalesce at one time. As we get into the fall, that's traditionally where the majority of the budgetary stuff is kind of finalized and compiled. But I will promise you, the town of Plattsburgh will pass another budget that's under the New York State tax cap, okay? The town of Plattsburgh will continue to use a modified zero-based budget. You would need to turn inward to the various taxing jurisdictions to get a better understanding of what their rates are going to be, okay? But I believe the county has been, over the last couple of years, either pretty flat or in a reduction mode. Fire departments have been doing pretty well. Not meaning to pick on the school districts, but again, that's an area that we hear a lot of concern, truthfully, right? So, I hope that gives some insight. And again, I will tell you that there is a recalibration occurring, and if people want to engage with us more, we are happy to have ongoing conversations. So with that, we're going to end the public comment session. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you would rather not, I certainly respect that. Thank you again for being here.
It's not a long
I do have
All right. Mark for report, it's a resolution 136, retirement of Russell Heath for the position of auto mechanic in the highway department.
I saw that. This is good.
His position as auto administration of the highway department. Therefore be it resolved that the town board, by appreciation for his service during his tenure to the town of Plattsburgh, accepts his retirement and wishes him well. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the finance manager and a copy be placed in the intervening personnel file.
Is there a motion? So moved. Wood, is there a second? Miller, any discussion? Can I get a roll call on this?
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Barbara Hebert? Yes. Charles Costick?
Yes.
Dana Isabella? Yes. Michael Capps?
Yes, resolution does carry. Resolution 137, which is the 2024 Highway Road Striping Program.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh and Clinton County participate in shared services to save costs and duplication of services. And whereas Highway Superintendent Craig Brunel has recently been in contact with the Clinton County Highway Department Superintendent Carl Lenz regarding the highway striping program for the town of Plattsburgh. And whereas the town of Plattsburgh has appropriated money in 2024 highway budget for the 2024 road striping program. And whereas Mr. Brunel, Highway Superintendent, has submitted the 2024 highway road striping program in the amount of $35,969.83. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby authorize the highway superintendent to spend the 2024 budgeted funds from account as stated here to execute the aforementioned 2024 road striping program. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the town of Plattsburgh Highway Superintendent and the Union County Highway Superintendent.
Is there a motion? Second. Wood, discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Resolution carries. Resolution 138, adoption of a breastfeeding, chest feeding, and lactation-friendly policy.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh supports chest breastfeeding members of the public and the right to chest breastfeed is undisturbed in public spaces in accordance with all applicable New York State and federal laws regarding chest breastfeeding. And whereas the town of Plattsburgh does not discriminate against any members of the public who choose to breast, chest, or breastfeed of the breast child, therefore be it resolved, the town of Plattsburgh breastfeeding, chest feeding, and lactation-friendly policy as attached be adopted and made part of the town's official policy effective immediately. Be further resolved that a copy of this resolution and policy be given to the bookkeeper for filing and to the town clerk for the implementation and compliance.
Before we ask for a motion, this was a carryover resolution, so I apologize. The bookkeeper who will just be the business officer. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Resolution 139, an MOU with Clinton County Soil and Water Conservation District, Plattsburgh Rotary Club, Sunrise, Plattsburgh Rotary Club, New B, the Change, and the Town of Plattsburgh to repurpose Geisier Park for the pollinator garden.
Whereas the memorandum of understanding to establish a framework of cooperation upon which Clinton County Soil and Water Conservation District, Plattsburgh Rotary Club, Sunrise, Plattsburgh Rotary Club, Be the Change, and the Town of Plattsburgh may work collaboratively to repurpose Geisier Park as both an educational space for the community and environmentally diverse space for pollinators, as presented to the town board for consideration. Therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby authorize the town supervisor to sign each member